Hi, and welcome to Community Hotline. My name is Monica Weitzel. We're here in Gresham at MetroEast Community Media. Glad you joined us tonight. We've got a full show for you. We're going to start out talking with Catholic Charities, specifically the Immigration Legal Services. And joining us tonight, we have Sarah Purse, who is the lead attorney and rural program coordinator, and Emily Gumper, staff attorney also with Catholic Charities. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much. So Sarah, you were on here before a couple of years ago, and I know things always change, so I'd love you to update us, on some of the things that are going on. Maybe you could start out, though, by telling people a little bit about what the Immigration Legal Services Department does at Catholic Charities.
Sure. The Immigration Legal Services Department at Catholic Charities, we provide high quality immigration services to low income individuals. And so there are two parts of our program. We have a general program. They mostly do family-based immigration, so people who are petitioning for their family members. And they also do, they do a lot of, they don't do a lot of asylum or business or anything like that, but they do mostly family-based, and then also some relief for victims of crimes. And then we have a rural program, which is funded from a grant through the Department of Justice Office on Violence Against Women, and that program, which we both work in, serves rural victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and child sex abuse. So they're both immigration services, but they're different funding sources.
Different
Our general program, they do have to charge fees for their services to keep the program running, but they're nominal fees compared to what a private attorney would charge.
Sure.
And we do have income limits on who we can serve, but.
And yes. What is the area that you serve? Is it all of Oregon?
It is. Well, together our program serves all of Oregon.
Okay.
So.
And I know it's a little bit different for the rural one, so we can talk about that a little bit more. As attorneys there, then what specifically do you two do? I mean, are you the ones that are counseling the either victims or people that are trying to immigrate here, or? How about you?
Yeah, we're meeting with clients, people from the community, or talking with people on the phone from other parts of Oregon who are coming to us with immigration issues, and we're specifically working in the rural program with victims of domestic violence and serious crimes to help them apply for immigration benefits.
Okay. Now, I know that the services that you offer to the victims of crime, there's several things that you're able to do. Why do you focus on that in particular? Is it because people who are victims of domestic violence or abuse, it's hard for them to come forward and hard to get help? What is the reasoning behind that?
Many reasons, but yeah, that's part of the reason. The people that we work with in the rural program are, because they're rural, they have less access to, if you live in Portland, maybe that you have more options as far as where to go for assistance. And rural victims of domestic violence or abuse face additional barriers, language barriers, fear of police. Perhaps they've been told by their abuser that they'll be deported if they report anything, or even if they leave the house, that they'll be immediately deported and taken away from their children. So
the isolation of being in a rural area is a real drawback in situations like that.
Right, and those could be issues, anywhere, but in a rural area it can be more difficult to find assistance. And so the funding that we get from the federal government helps us focus on those people who have less access to the assistance that they might need.
So the people that you serve, are they citizens, or are they people that have just come here to the country and they haven't yet gone to that? Worked on becoming a citizen? They don't have to be, right?
So the people that we serve they're not citizens, but they have various levels of immigration. Some people, came on a visitor visa and then have stayed, or some people came for example, we have a number of clients who came on a fiancé visa or as the spouse of a U.S. citizen, and then if that relationship turns abusive, there are some reliefs for those people that they don't have to stay in that situation, but they aren't going to lose their immigration status if they leave.
That makes perfect sense. It would be
Yeah.
really difficult if you came, as a fiancé or a spouse, and then all of a sudden found that it wasn't a situation you could endure. Then that would be really scary if you didn't know
Right.
what your legal status was and if there was help out there.
Right, especially if you're getting all of your information from
That
your
person.
abuser.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's probably the case in a lot of times, especially if you don't speak the language.
Especially, yeah.
Yeah. So how have things changed? When you were on before, I think we were talking about DACA and some other things. What's changed since a couple of years ago with Catholic Charities?
So I don't know, I can't remember how much we talked about DACA last time, and that's not something that we do in the rural program, but it is, there are a lot of changes happening right now, so I want to make sure people know about it. So DACA, it's an acronym for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and so that is a status that people can apply for. It's deferred action, so it's not an actual legal status, and there's no law in the law, in the written law that protects it. It was an executive action. It started in 2012.
Okay.
And so it was a program that was created for people who arrived here as children who were undocumented. So they were mostly people who were brought here by their parents and who have completed a certain amount of schooling or in school. And they're eligible for something called deferred action, which means that they won't be removed and they're eligible to apply for work authorization, which in Oregon can get you a Social Security card and gives you the ability to drive legally, which is
Right, and
really
that's
important.
fairly new, though, right?
Yeah.
Or was that something different? The ability to drive. I know in one of the elections.
Yeah, and that's a
a whole
different thing. That's a whole different thing.
That's a whole nother issue.
The driver's license for everyone was not enacted. So you do need some kind of legal permission to be here in order to drive.
A lot of hoops
to get a driver's license. So the DACA program, the new thing is that in 2014 there was an expansion of that program that would extend the age of people who are eligible for DACA to allow people who are older, as long as they still arrived before they were 16, to still apply for DACA. And then there was also an expansion to DAPA, which is Deferred Action for Parents of Americans and Lawful Permanent Residents.
Oh.
So that would expand that deferred action status to parents of citizens people who are undocumented, but their children are U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents.
So that could be somebody who came over here, had their child here, but then went back, but that would allow them to come back.
Right.
Is that?
And so they were here now, raising their child, working, but they themselves don't have permission to be here or have work. And I think that there are estimates that there are 11 million people who would fall into that category in the country. And so it's like a large number of people, and just trying to figure out how can these people, for one thing, be able to drive legally or anything like that. So
I mean, trying to get a job and all that, it's hard if you can't do all that. So.
And so that program was announced in 2014, but that program has not started yet because their litigation, this case has been moving through the courts for a while now, and it's actually in front of the Supreme Court, and they're going to be making a decision at some point this month. We don't know when.
Oh, so finally it's going to wrap up.
So we'll know one way or the other, and we don't know which way it's going to go at this point, but we're just waiting to hear. And so we wanted to make sure that people knew that that was happening, and that they should make sure that they look to a credible source for information about the program, because a lot of times when a new program like this starts or doesn't start, there are a lot of people coming out of the woodwork to try and take advantage of people who are undocumented and make them pay for services that maybe they're not eligible for, and they could be putting themselves in danger. So talking to an accredited organization or an immigration attorney, just to make sure you're getting accurate information.
Wow, that's a really scary thought. I mean, something that could be really good for them could really turn out badly.
Yeah.
So Catholic Charities or other organizations that do that kind of work, that have a good reputation. And
Exactly. And we'll have information on our website as soon as that happens, and try to send out letters into the community so people know what's going on with that.
So tell me a little bit more about the rural program then. How do you reach out to these people? How do they contact you?
Yeah. We have specific memoranda of understanding with partners in a number of rural counties. And
so the partners being?
The partners are like a domestic violence organization or shelters in different counties across the state. And so when these service providers come into contact with someone, who might be in need of our services, then they will give us a call and put us in touch. And then twice a year, we actually make visits to these rural counties.
Make the rounds?
Yeah.
Do you do it all at once?
No.
You brought a map, I think,
but we spent some time in the car.
Oh,
for
I
sure.
bet.
Yeah,
We do. We did bring a map, yeah.
You did bring a map, and so maybe we can take a look at that. You can show us what areas you do serve.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
here's the
so so which areas?
So the counties that are considered fully rural in Oregon are the gray counties on this map. So you can see that Oregon is mostly rural.
Right,
It's pretty much just the I-5 corridor that doesn't fall into that. The population is too high to be considered rural. And so the great thing about this is if somebody is a victim of one of those things I mentioned, domestic violence, child sex abuse, sexual assault, or stalking, and they live in one of these counties or the abuse happened in one of these counties, they can contact us and we can give them a free consultation about their immigration options. And if they're eligible for one of these forms of relief, we can do their case for free.
Oh, wow. That's a great service.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how many people do you serve in a year? Do you have any idea?
It varies. We report it, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head what our numbers are. And we have to report every 6 months to our grant on our progress, and we have specific goals that we have to meet as far as how many people we serve, and that is different for primary victims, and we can also serve like their children, derivatives and things like that. And then we also have to do a certain number of these outreach events where we go and train service providers in the area to help them refer. And then we also do education events in the community so that people are aware of these services. Because we've been doing, this program has been at Catholic Charities since 2005. And we went to Hermiston and Milton Freewater a couple of weeks ago, and we talked to different groups of people who had never heard of it. And
Really?
we've been doing these outreach programs since 2005.
And that's the way it goes. There's turnover. People,
right,
things
exactly.
change, and then
Exactly.
they don't pass down the information.
Right.
So you have to keep at it.
Right.
Yeah. That's tough. So when.
But sorry, to answer your question, it's hundreds
Hundreds,
of
right.
So
Hundreds.
I think our goal is for a 3-year grant. I think it's to serve 500 clients, and we always meet or exceed our goal.
Oh, good for you. So so this is a grant. It's just like a renewed.
It's something that you renew. It's not for sure, but every 3 years we
Cross your
apply
fingers
to.
and hope.
We do. It's half of our program. So
Yeah.
we really do depend on it a lot. But we have been told that we're a model program. So that's helpful.
So the rest of
in
the country should be modeling it. Well, that would be it would be really important to be able to do that. We don't have a lot of time left. So tell me what are some of the languages that you are able, or the people in your office speak, and are you able to get interpreters for if you don't speak those languages?
Well, all of our staff speaks English and Spanish, and then and a number of our staff are fully bilingual, fluent in Spanish. We have staff that speak Vietnamese. We currently have a Russian-speaking staff member. I'm forgetting.
There's a lot of Russian and Spanish and Vietnamese in this area. The rural areas, I don't know what the makeup is of most of those, but you're usually able to take care of them one way or the other. Yes.
And then we're also able to pay for interpreters
Okay, good. So before we run out of time, what do you want people to know about this? What's the most important thing that they should know about your rural program?
I think
that it exists.
That it exists, that I just mentioned. So if somebody knows of somebody who they think might be undocumented or in need of immigration help, that they, and that they're perhaps the victim of some sort of abuse or domestic violence, or if they've been a victim of a crime or their child has been a victim of a crime, that they should just reach out to us and just to see, because if they live in one of these areas, we can do a consultation for free, and maybe they're not eligible for that, but they're eligible for something they never thought about, and we can direct them to refer them to somebody else. And if people are in this area and they have questions about maybe the DACA program or the upcoming DAPA program, that they really try and talk to somebody who is going to have accurate advice and try not to go to somebody who might be taking advantage of them.
Okay.
We've heard some really sad stories about people who've applied for something that they weren't eligible for. Maybe they had a criminal conviction that made them ineligible, and then once they have applied, they've basically, reported themselves to immigration and then are put into removal proceedings.
So so that's not a danger for people that come to you. You're not going to automatically.
We will
report
not. No,
anything.
we will
Okay.
not.
Confidential.
It's totally confidential.
That might be one of the most important things for people to know.
Yeah.
Really.
We're not immigration. We're not law enforcement. We have a confidential relationship with our clients where we would be their attorneys, and so
right,
we're not
that's
gonna share anything that would be detrimental to them. And so it can be kind of hard to get in. We do have kind of have a lot of cases, but I think
Be patient and wait. It's worth it.
But we have good referral lists because
Yeah.
we can get you somewhere where somebody can get you the answers that you need.
Great. Thank you both very much for being on here today. And thanks for sharing about the rural program and everything that Catholic Charities does. Time goes too fast. There's too many things to talk about.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this first segment of Community Hotline. And if you have questions, be sure to contact Catholic Charities. It's a safe place to call, to contact, to get the answers to your questions. And if you don't, if it doesn't affect you, but you know somebody else that needs that information, do refer them to Catholic Charities. And we'll be right back in a little bit more with more of Community Hotline, so stick around.
My documentary was more than I ever would have dreamed of doing.
This is a community media station.
It was phenomenal.
Ready, camera, one.
What is it about this place that makes so many different people come together?
Ready, camera, two.
Very professional, experienced people.
You can use these industry standard pieces of equipment.
Ready, camera, three. Take three.
To be rich to do this.
Open people's eyes to something they've never even thought of before.
Cool stuff happens. It becomes this community.
That's going to really change who's telling the stories and who's controlling the messaging.